Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joe David Cantu, also known as JD from Hispanic News Online. We are having one more interview this today for the 30 for 30 podcast series for Hispanic Heritage Month. I want to tell you guys that this has been a really, really interesting experience getting to know all these Latinos and Latinas from across the country and all the stuff that they're doing. One of the things that's happened along the way is people have recommended other folks, and they say, "Oh, you need to talk to this person. You need to talk to this person." Well, in saying that, I'm going to tell you that this person came to me highly recommended, and I'm really, really excited to know her story and learn a lot more about her. So, if you don't mind, I'm going to introduce you guys to Susana Maria Chavez. Hello.
Yeah, yeah, hello. So do we call you Joe David?
Yeah, you know
Do you
what?
go by your full name?
No, actually, the only one that calls me Joe David is my family, and everybody else calls me JD pretty much. But when my mom calls me, she calls me Jose David.
Yeah, okay. Mom gets can call you what they want to, huh?
Right, right, right.
No, that's great.
So tell me a little bit about yourself. Introduce yourself to my community and let them get to know you a little bit.
Okay, so hello. My name is Susana Maria Chavez, and I live in Atlanta, Georgia. I actually never thought that I would move to Georgia, because who moves to, you know, to Georgia in the South? But I moved here in 1980, really fresh out of college, and I fell in love with it. So my background is I was born in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I lived there really half my childhood, and then when I was in my early teens, my father moved all of us, so my mother and father and four children, to California. So I went to high school in Huntington Beach, and I really felt like a fish out of water. I was, it was a beach, blonde-haired, blue eyes, and I did not look that way at all. And but I did it, and I, made friends. And then I went to college in Northern California at UC Berkeley, and had a fabulous experience. And then, as I said, it was a few years out of college, so I wasn't fresh out of college. I was now 25 years old. It was 1980, and I had an opportunity to work in Georgia, and I really thought it was going to be just a very short-term place for me as I figured out what I wanted to do sort of in the next step of my life. But I moved here, and I really fell in love with the people and with the city, Atlanta, and so I ended up staying here and, actually having two children and raising them here, and, being very involved in business and just in the Atlanta community at large.
Before we started this interview, we talked about this. I actually kind of said to you, you don't sound Latina, but you are way Latina. You're like 400-year Latina. Can you explain to people, because I know what that's like because I'm from Texas, and being a Latino and Latina from the South or the Southwest, I can imagine, has a different perspective for some of us because, like myself, your family was here for a long time before it even became the U.S., wasn't it?
Right. So my family, I come from a long time New Mexican family. My family's been there for over 450 years. So really, and so who I am culturally and ethnicity is Spanish and Native American. And when my father went to school, he didn't know English, so he only spoke Spanish. That was not the thing to do at that time. Everyone was trying to acclimate into the American way of life. And so when him and my mother, who's also a long-time New Mexican family, when they had their children, they were determined that they would grow up speaking English. So one of my sisters is fluent in Spanish, but it's because she learned, in college. And anyway, I did take a lot of Spanish in high school and college, and traveled extensively through Mexico and Central America, and really got pretty proficient in the language. And then but I didn't keep it up. So my Spanish is horrible, and and it's a shame, but that's what I did.
Hey, but you know what? There's millions of us like you out there that grew up as what I call border babies. We grew up in this area where there's some nephews and nieces of mine who don't even speak any Spanish at all, which I think is a shame. But that's the way it is, and they just wanted to assimilate to the community. And but so Atlanta, tell me a little bit about Atlanta. What took you to Atlanta? And I understand you're a very successful businesswoman in Atlanta. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, and also I want to tell you an experience I had with just being like, what am I? So in New Mexico, as I was growing up, I was always told that I was Spanish. So that's what I was. I was Spanish. And anyone would ask me, and that's what I would say. And then when my family moved to California, so this was in the 70s, in the late 60s, early 70s, and it was when the Chicano movement was very strong in this country, but especially in California, which is right across the border from Mexico. And so, I was going to school, and I'm in seventh grade or eighth grade at the time, and people would ask me, "What am I?" And then, in high school, and whenever I said I was Spanish, they, like, "What are you trying to deny who you are? You're a Chicana." And so then I dealt with, okay, so what is a Chicana? And so that was really interesting. So, a Chicano is Mexican American, and at this point, I had just been really in Mexico a few times, really just over the border from either New Mexico or California. But, I could relate, because I definitely grew up with all the, eating the dishes from New Mexico, so chili, tortillas, frijoles, and so I definitely grew up within the culture of being New Mexican, and I was very comfortable with, so this identity with Mexico, so Chicano, Mexican American, and I was fine with that. But then I moved to Georgia, like I said, when I was 25 years old, and in Georgia at that time, and in Atlanta specifically, which is where I was living, there were very few Latinos. And it was anyway, very few. And in Georgia and in Atlanta, there are a lot of African Americans. So it's a very diverse culture. So a very strong African American community that's very much a part of the business structure, the power structure, the government structure in Atlanta specifically. And I would meet, a African American, and they would say to me on occasion, they'd ask me, "What am I?" And I would say, I don't know what I said at the time. I'm from New Mexico. I'm Chicano. I'm not. I don't remember 100%. But then they would say to me, "You look exactly like my sister. Like, are you denying that you're really, African American or black?" And I really had to examine what I was. And, just think about it. I mean, because we're, there's mixed race in all of us, or in many of us, or some of us. And, for a long time, when we said we were Spanish, I didn't even think about being Native American. But if you looked at me, you could see Native American in me. I know I am. But what tribe or, I have no idea because it was really not acknowledged because at that time it, wasn't good to be Native American or something. And so now I'm examining myself because, I see other people and, I could, in Atlanta, and I could see where they could think, I was African American or black.
Wow.
And, so it was very interesting. And actually I had an experience, one of those spiritual experiences we have sometimes in our life where I was sitting around a campfire, really camping in the woods with a group of friends and a group of, acquaintances. And as I was looking around the fire late at night, and there were people, black, white, brown, around the fire. And as I looked around the fire, I thought, we are all brothers and sisters. And, and skin color or ethnicity is just another part of it.
You're right.
And so I could really relate after that to these African Americans saying, you look just like my brother and sister. And I would say, maybe we're cousins.
Well,
so that's, just an interesting part about being in Atlanta.
Well, it's funny because, if you really kind of paid attention to it, we're all of this, we're all built pretty much the same. It's all the same thing. It's just that ethnic spice is what I call it because, every ethnic group brings their own flavor to something, so it's a different spice that you bring on. And I can totally understand where you're coming from because I'm I can speak Spanish pretty well. I wouldn't say I'm proficient or fluent on it, but I'm pretty good. But it's funny when I speak to some of the laborers or some people, especially here in Texas, and I break into Spanish from them, they absolutely freak out. They're looking at me going, "What is this white man talking to me in Spanish?" Like it's strange, isn't it? But coming from, I guess, from the areas that we are, it's that kind of stuff that we grew up with. So so Atlanta. So tell me about the business part of your Atlanta. What do you do in Atlanta?
Yeah. So what I do, I actually work in my family's business. So my father, when he took us out to New Mexico. So when he was living in New Mexico, so he grew up there. His family had been there for hundreds of years, and he was first a teacher, and then he got into real estate. And the story goes that when I was born, so I'm the fifth of 6 children, and when I was born, that he went to an uncle and he said, "Uncle, how do I make more money? Or how do I make the dollar stretch? I've got a 5th child. Like, how do I support my family?" And the uncle said, "You don't need to make the dollar stretch. You need to make more dollars." And so my father rented a desk in a realtor's office and actually learned the real estate business. And he bought and sold both residential real estate, so houses, apartments, and also he was involved in commercial real estate, which is buildings and I guess land. And when he, soon after he turned 40, he took a trip out to California, and he got what I say is bitten by the parking bug. So I'm talking about parking lots, parking garages, you park in space number 2 and you pay an attendant or you pay a parking meter. And anyway, so we got to the business, and my older brother, whose name is Manuel also, he I think he's 20 years old, and he actually joined my father in the business. So between my father and my older brother, they built a business. And when I moved to Georgia, my father was still in California, and I had a brother who was expanding the business. and actually it expanded it in Dallas, and now had expanded into Atlanta, and that's when I moved to Georgia for. So before that, as I said, I had been in school, gotten my degree as an English major, and was traveling and working, and then opened up a health spa, so a health spa for women back in Albuquerque, sort of before health spas became very popular, but I was into them. I was always into health and eating well and, running and exercising and just really being robustly healthy. I just, thrived on it, just eating well and, just getting out and running outside. And so I opened up a health spa with my older sister, Andrea, and but our business model did not work. So after a couple of years in the business, I told my sister that I felt like I just needed to move forward, and my brother then had offered me a job in Atlanta. So my sister and I, made our agreement, and she continued with the business, and for a while, and then so I moved to Atlanta really to regroup, to work here, start making some money, and to think about what I was going to do next in life. But I ended up staying. I really fell in love with the business and with working with my family. And working with your family can be very difficult. Many people have really horrible experiences with it. And it is because there's a lot of issues to work through, because you want to have a healthy business, but you also want to have a healthy family, and it's how do you make that work. So anyway, 25 years later, or actually right now it's 35 years, I'm still in the business. Our business has really expanded. We do a lot of different types of parking, and we own a lot of the properties that we manage, and we're in, I think it's 17 markets, meaning 17 cities around the country, and we have a growing, thriving business, and I feel very lucky to be involved with it. And we are always working on improving the family working dynamics. So I've got a very close family, but it doesn't mean that things are always easy or straightforward, and there's a lot of sticky, icky issues to work through. And everyone, not just myself, but my other brothers that are involved, they all have to be willing to work through it. And some days you feel like it, other days you don't. But we've survived, and we're now really the third generation in our family. So all of our children, the ones that are interested, are learning the business, and some of them are very active in the business. And, it'll be turned over to them, and, they'll take it to the, next level.
Very interesting. So, as a Latina and an executive in your company, it must be, sorry, because there's not a lot of executive Latinas out there in the business world. Do you feel any difference, especially when you walk into talking to a bank or purchasing some new properties? What is it like? Because as a Latino, I have no idea. But so tell me what it's like to be an executive Latina.
You're always working. Like sometimes you're at the top and sometimes you're at the bottom. Sometimes you have an employee that has been reporting to you, and then at other times that employee gets a job with a different firm that all of a sudden becomes our client, and I'm reporting to them. sometimes you're going to a bank and you're negotiating a loan, and other times you have banks coming to you and uh, they're asking you to restructure. I mean, so and it's with anyone. Sometimes you're the boss and people are doing what you tell them to do, and other times you're doing what other people are telling you. So, it really is. And every day, I mean, I remember the first time I was on the phone with an attorney that was from another company, that we were negotiating a contract. And, I mean, this was years ago. I mean, but not that many, 10 years ago. And I thought, isn't this so funny? Here I am at the, I think I was getting my hair done. So I'm getting my hair cut. I'm talking with an attorney on my cell phone, negotiating this contract. And I thought, God, how, with a very large company, we're pretty large. We have 1,000 employees. We have, we're fairly large. We're substantial, sort of middle-sized company. And I was talking to a much larger company, and I just, I felt sort of giddy from the whole thing. So, it's a good feeling too. But then other times they're, calling you and, admonishing you for something or canceling your contract.
Yeah.
And for a lot of different reasons, internal political reasons, etc. So it's like I said, you're always working.
Always.
No matter who you are.
So I understand that you're also very active in your community. Can you tell me a little bit about, what you're doing with your community?
Yeah, so I, when my kids were young, actually, I was not active at all. So I have 2 children who are now in their mid to late 20s, and I was really a single mother for the most of my life. And so between work and with my children, I just didn't have time for anything. And really, some years, especially when they were young, I just felt like I was trying to survive to, pay my bills, to, make dinner at night, and just sort of keeping my head above the water. And but as my kids got older and I started making, as my success was building, that I had a good friend, Joyce Fleming, who is Mexican and Irish by birth, and she was very involved with the Mexican Center of Atlanta and organizing Dia de Muertos celebration here in Atlanta. And she asked me to do something, and I started helping her, and I just really just got engrossed in that particular organization, which I said was the Mexican Center of Atlanta. And then my involvement in the community just continued to grow. So I've been involved with the very strong Hispanic organizations here, which is the Georgia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. I was on the board of directors, and then Instituto de Mexico, and am currently on the board with the Latin American Association, which is a very strong service organization here, and then also I've been involved with business organizations. So I'm the past president of the Anti-Prejudice Consortium, which works with middle school kids in prejudice awareness. I'm very proud of what we've done. We work with over 75 schools every year, 750 students, and we have a very impactful program about making us aware of our own prejudices. So that's been fantastic. I am currently president of the board for the Commercial Real Estate Women. It's called CREW Atlanta, and it stands for Commercial Real Estate Women. And There's 350 members locally. That's a chapter that I'm the president of, but there's over 10,000 members in the U.S. and Canada.
Wow.
And that's been, it's been really exciting, actually. It's always an honor when they ask you to, be on the board or to be president, and it's just a really fantastic organization, just really well organized, and women just doing a lot of things in the commercial real estate world. So that could be attorneys, landscape people that do landscaping, brokers, interior designers, title people that work with title companies. So it's just a plethora of people in commercial real estate, primarily women. And our mission is to influence the success of commercial real estate by advancing the achievements of women. So anyway, that's great. And, and then other organizations. So I've definitely served on a lot of boards and raised a lot of money and, brought awareness to different organizations.
When we started this conversation, you told me that you moved to Atlanta, and there really wasn't that many Latinos there. Have you seen a dramatic growth and in the Atlanta?
It has been an explosion. And in Atlanta, when Atlanta hosted the Olympic Games, it was excuse me for my coughing. It was the Summer Olympic Games in 1996. And during that time, Atlanta, there was a lot of growth of building, of constructing new arenas, of constructing, where the horse shows were, of constructing the pools for the athletes to compete, and doing improvements to the streets, to lighting, to roadways. And there was a huge influx from Mexico of workers, both skilled and unskilled, to do really all the labor that needed to be done to get us ready for the Olympics. And so Atlanta was very open to immigrants at that time, and it was really sort of a beautiful thing. And after that, and then people were coming from other areas as immigration occurs, and people are moving in. And I think that currently there are 500,000, so 500,000 Latinos in Georgia. So it was a huge shift since 1996 in the increase of Latinos from throughout Mexico, Central America, and South America.
Interesting. Yeah, I love Atlanta. It's a great city, and it's quite diverse now. I remember going there in the 80s and stuff, and the difference that it feels now that you get with all the new spices, I call it, getting into that city. What would you say to, let's say we have a class full of Latinos and Latinas in front of you? Would you have some kind of word of advice for them about being successful or working with their community? What would you give us some kind of words of advice?
I can give you a couple. My first one would be that in business, I strongly that you join organizations that have to do with your business, because you learn a lot through these organizations, and you can start seeing how you can go in different fields in that discipline, and also how money is really made in business. So, and what I would say is you always have to do the work that needs to be done, and you put 100% effort into it, to doing it well. But at the same time, you have to have your head up, looking around and seeing how business is done and how to benefit for yourself and your family. So it takes time. It's taken me my whole career. Nothing was given, even though I'm in a family business, nothing is just handed over to you. You really have to prove yourself. But as much as you have to prove yourself, you also have to ask for what you want. And so whether that's and it's all of these things, it's negotiating your first salary, realizing there are things to talk about, the salary level, the hourly wage, the vacation, etc. Like, depending upon your position, there may be less things to negotiate, less things to ask about. But with any job, there is always room for something, whether it's additional vacation days or just additional days that you could have off, or like when you're negotiating a job, that is a time to ask. And then also I would say with that, having a meeting with your supervisor and the people above them, if you're able to, a network with inside your company, so you can both advocate for yourself. I mean, you can't, what someone told me once is the CFO, so the Chief Financial Officer for your company, is not thinking how to make you more money. They're thinking about how to make themselves more money. They're thinking about how to make their company more money. But they are not thinking about how to make you more money. So if you want to increase your position, if you want to increase your compensation, you need to do it by the job you do, the skills you bring to the job, and always increasing those skills, and also negotiating your wages and benefits. So that's one piece of advice I would give. The second piece of advice with business is that, business isn't easy, and sometimes you get this really sick feeling in your stomach. You're scared, you're concerned, God, did I do it right? And, you just have to that is a part of business. And as another wise person told me one time, is if you don't have the stomach for business, get out. And that was really a good wake-up call for me, because I was thinking prior to that, like I shouldn't feel bad. Like, why am I sort of have this sort of hurt in my belly? But once I realized that is a part of business, because there's difficult decisions to be made, there's difficult jobs to do, it really almost, the pain in my stomach went away. So I don't want anyone to get sick by having all this anxiety. And so you have to really decide, is this a job for me or not? But also to learn that just by recognizing that there are difficult decisions to be made, that there's, but that you can do it. You can do it, and the more you do it, the easier it becomes.
Great.
So that's my advice.
Great words.
World. And can I give one piece of advice for sort of community service?
I wish you would.
JP? Okay, well, and that advice is both in volunteering your time and giving your money. Do it when you can do it. Like, they don't want your time or your money if you're taking it away from yourself and your family, and you really need to just, not volunteer and not donate, because you don't have the resources to do it. You don't have the time to do it. Don't worry, because there will become a time in your life when you're ready to do it. And really, because you wanted to do it out of the overflow in your life, and not feeling like you have to do it or by taking away from your family.
That is so true. Some people think that it's better to just volunteer and volunteer and volunteer, and yet they only hurt the organization because they can't put the time. And when an organization needs your time, you need to be able to give it, and also financially. Oh my God, I could sit
and if you can't do it, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay, because it's really, we want every individual to be healthy and prosperous, and there will be a time.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, you know what? I've asked all my guests to give a little bit of information of how people can reach out, because you never know. There may be a child or a parent out there who would like to ask you a question about volunteering in your community or learning more about business and stuff. Would you mind sharing a contact, and so I can share with the rest of the community about you?
Yes, I'm going to give you my email address,
Okay.
and feel free to email me, and I would love to, whatever question you have, large or small, I would love to answer it for you. So my email is my first initial and last name, so S. Chavez at PCA hyphen star STAR.com. So S. Chavez at PCA hyphen star.com.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you for coming on our show and talking to us. It is so wonderful to talk to a border baby and understand what you're feeling and talking about, and the difference in culture growing up in the Southwest. I really appreciate you taking time to do this with us, and I just want to say mil gracias. I love that you did this for us. Everyone, I want to say thank you for listening to us. This is Joe David Cantu, or JD, from Hispanic Heritage Month. I hope that you reach out and ask any questions that you want. I'm sure that any of my guests will respond to you if you have any questions to them. So please take advantage of this. We have Susana, who is a successful businesswoman and also very involved in her community. And if you are starting a business and have some questions, or possibly working in the community and have some questions about some organizations of how to work in organizations, she could probably help you. So I hope that you reach out to her and ask some questions. But for now, we are done for today, and I want to thank you all for coming. But please come back tomorrow, because we are going to introduce another Latino and Latina for the next 30 days. So come back and listen to us. Thanks. Bye.